Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Chile once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are a very well established and very well respected name of the Chilean craft beer scene, and they've built up a really good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years. They do a wide variety of different styles, but from what I gather, they've really made their name with their barrel program. So they're brewing big imperial stouts and stuff like this, but also kind of sour beers and wild ales and things like that too. So the beer that we're going to have a look at today is from a family of beer styles that this brewery is very well known for, one that they can do very well from what I gather too, and it's also got some adjuncts in it that I don't think I've had in the beers that I've tried from this particular style category before as well. We haven't had too many Chilean brewed beers from this particular family of styles either. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Quilpué, which is a bit to the east of Valparaiso on the Chilean coast and kind of to the west of Santiago de Chile, the capital. And that means that we're going to have a look at my first beer from Cerveza Granizo. So this particular beer is called Propósito. It comes in at 9.2% ABV, and this one is a sour beer with nectarines added into it, and it's been aged in oak fodders and stuff like this too. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. A little bit of a beast at 9.2% ABV, and yeah, I haven't had too many nectarine fodder aged beers either, so this should be really quite interesting actually. This is yet another beer that was given to me by the lovely Miss Amanda, so a big thank you to her for making this review possible, along with her friend Basti, who I believe took the beer with him from Chile to Sweden, and then of course Amanda brought it to me here in Hong Kong. But definitely cool to be able to review some of these Chilean breweries for you here on the channel as well, because I don't think anyone's really touched on these on BeerTube yet. So yeah, exciting stuff actually, but definitely cool to try this one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well, as I said earlier. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Cerveza Granizo. Very first time I'm encountering one of their beers, as I mentioned, but hopefully not the last. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You can find this one in the Chilean playlist along with a number of other things, because that's being added to every so often whenever Amanda can get some Chilean beers to me basically. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then and tell you a little bit about Cerveza Granizo, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Spanish pronunciations in this video. Still getting used to the language, of course. But yeah, Cervecería Granizo was born from the Granizo district in Olmué in Chile. So Olmué you can find a little bit to the kind of northeast of Valparaiso and to the northwest of Santiago de Chile, and the Cerveza Granizo takes its name from this area, which is next to the La Campana National Park, which is of course known for its wildlife, its biodiversity, however you want to put it. But the brewery was founded by Oscar Garrido back in 2011, and he's an agronomist by trade but has extensive experience of wine production from Chile and other countries. So he studied his Master of Viticulture in Enology, which is basically, I think, growing grapes and the process of winemaking. He studied this in Spain back in 2009, and while he was in Europe he had access to a much wider beer offering, and he realised that the craft beer scene was really quite diverse and it was something that he wanted to explore more. So before he returned home to Chile, he worked for a time in a vineyard in New Zealand and then also for another one in the US, and both of these countries had a brewing history that was much more advanced than that in Chile at the time. So in his free time he was tasting tasting different craft beers and also brewing them for himself, and eventually he decided that he was going to swap grapes for hops. So he founded Cerveza Granizo in 2011, where he was both a partner and the head brewer, and also he was overseeing the barrel aging program, which received international acclaim. But he also participated sometimes as a beer judge and took part in competitions across the Latin American countries. And of course, as we know, the Latin American countries do have a very good beer scene these days. So later on in 2016, Herman Fritsch joined Granizo as a partner, and he, during his tenure, they had a big increase in their production volume. So Herman is a commercial engineer from Santiago, but he has German ancestry, as you might guess from his name, and so he studied at the German School of Santiago, during which time he had the opportunity to do a study exchange program during his teenage years. But later on during his university years, he studied on exchange again, and it was this that pushed him to explore Germany further, Czechia, and other places in Europe too. And of course, during that time, he encountered a lot of classical beer. But upon returning to Chile, he co-founded a company called Cask Chile in 2014, which is a beer import company. And the idea of this was to basically bring in some of these European beers and other craft beers that he discovered across the world to share with his fellow Chileans. So in 2016, he joined Granizo after many years of friendship with Oscar, and that same year, the brewery relocated to Quilpué, which is closer to Valparaiso. It's just out to the east, and apparently you can see it's a suburb of Valparaiso. But Granizo operates a tap room called Quercus, which opened in Viña del Mar in 2019, and then it recently relocated to Santiago in 2023. But they've got over 20 taps there. Apparently it's very well known for its pizzas too, so it sounds like it's right up my street. And that year, 2023, Oscar also left the company to work as head brewer for Phantom Farms Brewing in Rhode Island in New England in the US. But over the years, the brewery has earned many awards in various competitions, both in Chile and internationally, and they've really established themselves as a very well respected brewery in Latin America. Apparently they are the top rated Chilean brewery on Untappd. But Cerveza Granizo is known for their barrel program, as I mentioned earlier, and much of this actually finds its roots in the founders' knowledge of the wine industry, and so they use a wide variety of wine, pisco, rum and other barrels to age a variety of different styles of beer. But they've also become very well known for their use of adjuncts over the years as well. But as of November 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 131 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Cervecería Granizo for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, now I can breathe. That's the brewery history section done. I get a little bit out of breath doing these in this room sometimes just because it's that wee bit more humid in Hong Kong. But yeah, to tell you a little bit about the beer itself. So the name, of course, is Propósito. It comes in at 9.2% ABV. This one has been matured in larch fodders and oak barrels for 32 months, and then it's been re-fermented with nectarines for 3 further months. So yeah, it takes them about 36 months, 3 years, to actually make this beer. So this one seems to be one that has different vintages, and just going by the date on here, it looks as if this one is the 2022 vintage that we have, and it says best before 2027. But it was brewed with the original one was brewed in collaboration with the Belgian brewer Peter Boucaert, who, if I remember rightly, he might be from Alvin, which is a very, very well respected, more modern sour beer brewery. Actually, I can't remember who he works with, but I do recognise his name. So yeah, pretty cool collaboration, this one, I guess you could say as well. But yeah, my very first look at, I believe this is my very first look at a wild ale from Chile, so this should be quite interesting. But yeah, I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. So like I said, Propósito, if I get the intonation right, that means purpose in Spanish. Of course, I'm still learning Spanish, of course, a lot better at Swedish and German than I am at Spanish. Tells you a little bit about the beer on the back there as well, and basically it just tells you in a bit more of a kind of long-winded way what I mentioned about how this beer was made with Peter Bokert. But yeah, 473 milliliter can, this one American pint. It looks really nice. Yeah, it's got a kind of snowflake on it as well, so maybe it is a Christmas release or something like that as well. But yeah, a nectarine sour coming in at 9.2% ABV. Let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's got in store for us. I'm really curious. Can was a little bit hard. We'll just let it calm down. Did get a little bit of bubble there. But yeah, I managed to not spill any, so I'm pleased with myself. Yeah, there we go. So let's just carefully get this guy out and into the glass. There we go. We'll have to be quite careful with pouring this, I guess. It's always something you have to be careful of. It's a little bit unusual to put this kind of beer in a can as well. I don't know if I've had too many of this kind of sour beer wild ale category in cans, actually, or more kind of kettle sour type sours in fact. But yeah, anyway, this beer, quite an unusual colour I have to say. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up for you guys. I think you're seeing it kind of naturally there now, but it's got a real kind of blood orange type colour to it, which will obviously be from the nectarines, and it's got a little bit of a kind of natural haze to it as well. No head, of course, as you can see, just some bubbles travelling up the side of the glass to the surface of it. But yeah, the colour of this one looks great. It's almost the same colour as like a West Coast double IPA, something like this. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. So one will be the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, and that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer, of course. But when it comes to these kind of sour beers and wild ales, that factor does play quite a big role, and I think a lot of the kind of blood orange colour that you're getting out of this one will be from those nectarines. So yeah, a bit of natural haze to it. Just says water and malt, nectarines and hops in this one, but yeah, it's it doesn't say anything about wheat, because I would have guessed if the beer had this level of kind of natural haziness to it, it might have a little bit of wheat. So yeah, interesting appearance with this one, I have to say. I don't think I've seen a wild ale quite this colour before. So yeah, it's piqued my interest for sure. But I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. We can go on and have a little look at the aroma and see what that's going to give us. Yeah, very quirky beer, I have to say. Ooh, that does smell nice. And I will say, it does remind me of those Brouwerij Alvin beers from Belgium, actually. So maybe I was right about Peter Bokert. I'll need to look that up after the video. Yeah. So aroma-wise, it's kind of giving you everything you'd expect. It's got that lovely kind of vinous, citricy sort of character to it. So you've got that, yeah, lovely vinous-y, citricy character to the beer, and you've also got that big kind of woodiness and leathery character as well, which I love about these beers. Yeah, it's got everything you would want from this one, a little bit of kind of hoppy grassiness as well. So yeah, needless to say, this smells pretty damn good. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. But let's break this down a wee bit before we actually taste the beer. So for me, the backbone of this one, the woody character is quite interesting. Like it said, it's been aged in larch, was it casks? Larch fodders and oak barrels, sorry. So larch is a wood that I'm not overly familiar with, in honesty, but the woody character that you're getting out of this one is actually quite, it's actually got a little bit more dryness to it, in honesty. And it kind of reminds me, like the smell, it reminds me of the smell of beechwood, actually, in a sense. If you think about German Rauch malt, for example, it's got that kind of dryness to it, but obviously not the smokiness. So yeah, the oaky character that you get in there as well does add a bit of smoothness. I think the oaky notes come out a little bit further forward on the nose but the larch wood is coming out further back, if that makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see how that how that comes out in the flavour actually. But yeah, on top of that, you certainly get a little touch of vanilla from the oak, as you're always going to get. Remember, American oak I think is always a little bit smoother than European oak, whereas European oak is a little bit drier and gives you a little bit more of that sort of vanilla type character. So yeah, the woody backbone of this beer is really quite interesting and quite different to what I've encountered before. I know that in South America, the likes of Amburana wood, they've got a whole variety of different woods and things they can use down there for cachaça barrels and stuff like this. So yeah, barrel aging in Latin America is very interesting, along with the fruit adjuncts as well. But yeah, the woody backbone in this one, pardon me, is really interesting. But I will say the beer does have a sort of, when you think about the barrel side of it, it really does have a sort of white wine type character from the barrel side of things too. But yeah, the beer itself, I'd say there's a bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there, maybe a tiny little hint of brown bread. So yeah, a tiny little bit of brown bread in there. Softer, yeah, sort of softer white bread as well. Little tiny hint of like biscuit, McVitie's digestive biscuit, and then you've got a wee bit of like, there's a wee bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think is really nice as well. But these are all things we've seen from this type of beer before. The yeasty side of things in this one then, the other thing I would say is the more you smell this one and the deeper you take the aroma in, it's going to give you a more sort of leathery character too. So that's definitely quite interesting. Yeah, the yeasty side of things for me, this one, it has a mix of like white bread and brown bread to it, along with quite a lot of cracker. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. I don't know if there's too much else to say about the yeasty kind of thing. The malty and yeasty side of the beer is pretty straightforward. I think it's the wood in the barrel that's really the more prominent part of the flavour, and that of course is kind of what you want with these types of beers. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, with these beers it's obviously quite interesting to talk to the brewer about what their hopping mentality is, because with the likes of Lambics and Flanders Reds and things, what they always tended to do was add older hops to the beer that had lost a little bit of their alpha acid potency, because they didn't want the bitterness of the hops to detract from the sour side of the beer. Modern sour beer brewers that are doing smoothie sours and stuff like this, quite often they won't add hops into the beer, because they say that the fruity character will, the fruit adjuncts will suppress the green component anyway, which is a valid point. But other brewers will add the hops in because they say it gives the beer a more complex flavour, which is also a valid argument too. So as I say, always interesting to talk to the brewers and see what their kind of hopping mentality actually is. But yeah, the green component of this one is still there actually. You can smell a little touch of like earthiness. There's a wee bit of there's a wee touch of like herbal and woody character as well. Yeah, a wee bit of earthiness, wee bit of kind of woodiness as well. And yeah, you've got some really nice like grassy and floral notes too. It's probably some kind of noble hop that's been added in here. The Chileans of course do have some of their own hops. There's a good few hop farms down in Chile. And yeah, I don't know too much about the different varieties available there, but the sort of hoppy character I'm getting out of this one reminds me of German noble hops, which are not uncommon in these types of beers, especially the ones brewed in Belgium. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, you've obviously got that kind of white wine vinous type character coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, I think it's other than that, you're getting some like sultana, some oily pear, maybe a touch of gooseberry and things coming out of the beer. But yeah, other than that, the nectarines for me, they kind of sit on top and they give you this, it's not quite vinous, it's more like, it does give you that sort of sharpness that you expect from this kind of more kettle sour type of beer, but they give you a kind of softer juiciness as well. The nectarine is a fruit that I'm not madly familiar with, in all honesty, but yeah, the way that everything pieces together in this one is really, really nice, in fact. Yeah, so the way that that goes together is really nice. A very interesting beer, this one, I have to say, and I'm really quite curious just to see how it turns out. I'm very curious as well as to whether this is a kind of Christmas winter release, because the snowflakes on the side there are really quite nice. So yeah, let's get this guy out. I'm going to say let's get it out into the glass. It's already in the glass. Let's have a taste of it then and see what it has in store for us. This is the Propósito. It's 9.2% kettle sour, aged in larch fodders and oak barrels and then re-fermented with nectarines for a total of about 36 months. I think I remembered that correctly. But yeah, this should be really nice. Slàinte, skål, cheers, salut. Ooh. That's interesting. It's, when I think about these, these sort of more woody Belgian type sour beers, this one, I would say, it comes across as quite floral, almost. That's the first impression that I have of this one, is that it's quite, really gives you this big sort of floral note. I see we put the rest of it in. There wasn't much sediment in this, but yeah, it's really quite floral, and it's quite bready and smooth into the aftertaste as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together it's really interesting. It's quite quirky. I haven't had anything quite like this before, actually. And the nectarines there, they give you this lovely juiciness at the front of the palate too. Yeah, Amanda's really given me quite an unusual one here, and of course after 4,200 reviews, that's what you want. You want things that are going to kind of test your palate and make you think a wee bit. So yeah, happy with that. Yeah, let's try and break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So yeah, let's go to the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. The backbone of the beer, the woody character is quite interesting. It almost feels as if I'm guessing it's the larch, because it's slightly drier, and so you've got that kind of drier larch character underneath, and that does appear in the beginning, but then it disappears in favour of the smoother oak and comes out again into the aftertaste. So yeah, you've got that nice larch character in the base, the smoother oaky notes in there, and then yeah, further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got some really nice kind of more vanilla type notes there. But yeah, above the wood, it does give the impression of like a white wine almost. I couldn't tell you exactly what type of white wine, but yeah, the sort of barrel notes that you're getting out of this beer are a little bit more white wine orientated, which would make sense because that's kind of what's going to go well with nectarines. But yeah, the malty backbone of this beer is quite straightforward. This beer is actually very similar to its aroma, if that makes sense. The flavour that you get is quite reflective of what you would expect to transpire on the basis of the aroma. But yeah, so the backbone of the malty side of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. Little bit of like a woodiness and a crackery note further forward. So yeah, you've got the white bready bread crust, maybe a layer of cracker, and then the woodiness further forward. Then yeah, you've got a slight layer of like wholemeal brown bread, then a fluffier and taller white bready layer above that. And then you start to get some of the kind of brown sugary elements of this beer coming out. So yeah, nearly took some of it down the wrong way there. For me, the brown sugary side of this beer, you've got a backbone of sort of McVitie's digestive biscuit almost. Then you've got this circle in the middle of your palate, which is where all the boozy part of the beer is coming out. So the base of it is a more kind of leathery brown sugar. Then you've got a layer of more kind of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, and maybe in the dead centre of your palate it's a little bit more caramelly or fudgy or something like this. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, I do like that about this particular beer. Yeah, I don't know, other than saying there's a bit of cracker or a bit of woodiness into the aftertaste. Yeah. After that, yeah, you get a bit of that crackery woody note into the aftertaste, and then the sweetness sort of comes back as well, the Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch and stuff. So yeah, the way that that goes together is quite nice in this one. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about that middle third of your palate, to be honest with you. So remember that sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate and more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And the back third of your palate is always going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. You've got the sort of brown bread in the base and the fluffier white bread on top, and maybe a wee hint of like biscuity character on top of that. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the larchwood comes out a little bit more. So yeah, you've got that drier larchwood sort of thing. You've got a wee bit of a kind of more crackery sort of character to it as well. And then yeah, you've got that more, you can feel the wholemeal brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Then the white bready layer above that, which was a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. And then yeah, you can feel the kind of some of the biscuity and slightly leathery brown sugary notes just creeping over the top of that. And then above everything else on that back third of your palate, you've got the more yeasty part of the beer coming out. So let's have a little look at the yeasty side of things. So yeah, yeah, so the yeasty side of the beer for me is more yeah, it's a kind of mix of like brown and white bread, I would say. So yeah, at its core you've got this more dense grainy brown bread in there, then you've got a fluffier white bread around the edge of it, and then yeah, you've got a little bit more of a yeah, you've got a little bit more of a kind of, yeah, you've got the brown bread at the core, the white bread around the edge, then a more kind of crackery and brown bready bread crusty character coming out of it as well. So yeah, the yeasty side of this one's quite nice, and that does sit there into the aftertaste as well. Definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, onto the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit more herbal. Then as you push further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral aromatic sort of thing going on. And yeah, again, that's really quite nice in this one. I do like that about this this particular beer. Yeah, green component in this one, as I say, this beer does have quite a bit of floral character to it, and obviously the longer that you let this one sit, the more the hoppy character is going to drop out of it, obviously. But yeah, having that bit of green component to it, and the sort of graininess actually makes it quite interesting and quite quirky, I have to say. Works well with the white wine vinous characters too. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the... Yeah, let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then a wee bit of a kind of biscuity character on top. And then yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got the smoother side. You can still feel a bit of dryness from the larch wood. You've got the smoother side of the oak as well, which is giving you a bit more vanilla, I would say. And then yeah, you can feel some of the kind of sweeter side of the white wine vinous characters. Then yeah, white bready bread crust, the brown bread, the white bread, and then a little bit of the smoother leathery brown sugar in there. And above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the hops of the beer. So yeah, the hoppy fruits on this one, the oily side of it, I would say, yeah, the hoppy side of this one, the fruity side, I would say at the back of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit of a yeah, it's got a little bit of a more kind of sort of sultana type flavour, you know, dry white green grapes. As you move further forward, it's a little bit more kind of oily and peary, and then as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's a little bit more sort of gooseberry like. And then above all of that, you can feel the sort of sourness of the nectarines. So the sourness of the nectarines kind of sits there. It's mixed in with that border region, front third and middle third of your palate. You can feel that in there. Then it just sort of engulfs everything else. And the white wine vinous characters kind of pushing out that sort of note as well. So yeah, quite a quirky beer in a sense, because I've not had too many nectarine sours, at least in the kind of more kettle woody type sour category. But yeah, it's really quite interesting. So big thumbs up to Cerveza Granizo with this one as well. This has been really something that's tested the palate a little bit, so I like that. Yeah, Granizo have done a very good job with this one. So yeah, let's round off the review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel of this beer. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel of this beer is kind of, within this particular style category, I'd say that's one of the more thick and kind of oily ones that I've had. So I'd say generally speaking, this is maybe top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied, something like that. The carbonation is actually very, very smooth in this one. It's a more kind of oily, silky type mouthfeel that I'm getting out of this beer. But yeah, you've got a little bit of IBU to it, maybe, you know, 15, 20, something like that, because you do get that bit of floral character kind of lingering in the aftertaste. But yeah, you've got that nice smooth and dry woody character underneath, a little bit of bready character too, smoother malty notes above that. You've got the sourness of the fruit, and then that nice oily fruity character as well. This isn't one of the sours that's going to kind of blow you off, blow your head off in terms of its kind of impact flavours and things like that. Pardon me, it's actually kind of more oily and subtle and really nicely done. I've not had anything that's quite like this, but I will say you can feel the booziness in this one a little bit the more that you drink of it. So I think this can is definitely for sharing rather than kind of enjoying by yourself. But again, for me as well, these more kind of kettle woody type Belgian sours, I always prefer to do that anyway. So yeah, really interesting one this, and I think Amanda and Basti picked a really good one for me to have a little look at. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Propósito, 9.2% nectarine sour from Cervecería Granizo in Quilpue, just outside of Valparaiso in Chile, down in Latin America. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cervecería Granizo as well, and we will see about returning to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But until then, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out theirs. Slange your skull, cheers, whatever you like. I'm going to go away and enjoy the rest of this. Salut, ciao just now.